Good afternoon, everybody. I don't need much introduction of myself, right? Virtually everybody knows me. But with due process, I still have to state my name. My name is Dr. Uzoma Decatur from Forensic Science Program. Today we have the last series of seminars from the department. Today's seminar will be anchored by Dr. Douglas Posey. He will be talking to us on challenges and rewards of career in forensic science. So this is a very more important aspect to your career. Dr. Posey is a forensic pathologist, a retired associate medical examiner. Some of you have traveled to various medical examiners with us in the past, so we're bringing them back home. Dr. Posey has 11 years of career. He retired as an associate medical examiner for GBR. Everybody know what GBR is, right? They are the big boys in play in the state of Georgia. He also is the president and founder of the Forensic Scientists LLC, features at forensicscientists.org, and a senior consultant and partner with International Forensic Science Consultants LLC. He has some 8 years of a tour of duty with the Army Medical Service Department, a tour of duty with Army Medical Service Department where he studied medical technology. He then decided to continue his studies and graduated from Wayne State University with MD. Dr. Posey is a very known person to me. I've met him several times at forensic science conferences. I link him or relate with him and liken him to be in the class of Dr. Henry Lee. Baldwin, they are of the same caliber in the world of forensic science. So he's well known. He has practiced over donkeys of years, even before some of us were born in this class. So, with nothing much else to say, I would like us to put our hands together to welcome Dr. Douglas.
Dr. Okafor, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I must admit it was challenging to get to you here from Atlanta. My daughter, Dr. Kimberly Posey, MD, board-certified internist, took a day out of her busy schedule of practice in the Atlanta area so that I could be with you here today. I'm going to deviate a little bit from the script, so go along with me. I'm going to tell you some things that I would venture to say that 80% of the people in the nation, don't know. I think I could have subtitled this lecture, You Can Die in the Wrong Place. So stay with me, and you let me know towards the end, whether I made the right call or not. Forensic science is the hottest topic in the curriculum, thanks mostly to the National Crime Investigative Series, NCIS. We have NCIS from Miami to Las Vegas, from Las Vegas to Hawaii. And anytime you turn the TV on, you can bet that you're going to see either an episode of NCIS or Shaquille O'Neal in a commercial, one or the other. Today, you might make me look like I'm the Grinch that stole Christmas, because as much as people are enamored by the forensic science, NCIS, crime scene investigation, we have some serious problems. And I believe that all problem solving begins with telling the truth. So I'm going to peel back the onion today, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that you don't hear about, but that you or your loved one could become involved in. Most people in Harris County don't know, Texas where I live, don't know where the medical examiner's office is. I admit that it's unhealthy to walk around contemplating your death, but it's also unfair to me to show up at my office when your loved one has died with a Burger King menu and you want it your way when you don't know what I do. So I hope I can clarify some things today. I want you to get three things out of this, okay? Number one, I want you to not believe, I want you to know that you can die in the wrong place. Number two, I want you to know the difference between a medical examiner, and we also call forensic pathologists, medical examiners and coroners, okay? I was called a coroner by a seasoned journalist in the Houston Chronicle. We don't have coroners in Texas. We call them justice of the peace, okay? So I'm going to show you some things today. So stay with me, and let's take a look. Here on this slide just depicts some of the multiple disciplines of forensic science. They're still increasing, they're growing. I believe that artificial intelligence is going to cause us some problems. I don't know whether we're going to link that in with cybersecurity or not, but it is definitely on the horizon. But if you look at the center of the slide, you see standards. And one of the things that we've been criticized about, particularly in the crime lab, is the lack of standards. Some would go so far as to say, some as prominent as the National Academy of Science, said there is not enough science in forensic science. But I'm going to, after I tell you some of the things that I want to expose you to about the differences between coroners and medical examiners and the challenges that we have, but I want you to keep in mind, every challenge presents an opportunity, okay? It's a dangerous opportunity. Number one, you or your loved one could get caught up in this thing. Number two, as far as the working of it and what you're studying, you could also become a part of the solution. Now, we're going to try to get into the crime scene segment of this very busy chart because I just happen to believe that crime scene investigation and crime scene investigators work in particular out of the medical examiner's office is the sexiest of all of the disciplines. May I have the next slide, please? I grew up in small town Mississippi, Centerville, Mississippi. It's down in the lower corner there on the banks of the Mississippi River's population 1,300. I didn't know anyone in the community that had actually finished college. Next. Most of my high school compatriots dropped out of high school and went to New Orleans. We called it the Big Easy, looking for slow music and fast girls. So I did graduate from high school in 1960, but I had no goals. I had no plans. I didn't know nothing, okay? No place to go. Next slide. So I ended up in the Big Easy. But what I found, instead of slow music and fast girls, was I worked on the waterfront, International Longshoremen Association, unloading bananas. I lasted 1 day short of 2 weeks. And that carrying those bananas is the best thing that ever happened to me. Because even when I was struggling, when I ran out of money, and and probably shouldn't have stayed in school, I refused to leave because I remembered those bananas and didn't ever want to go back to that. Next slide, please. So once in my life, in my 80 plus years, I went back home to Centerville from New Orleans and sat in my mother's house once again, not knowing where I was going to go or what I was going to do next. My high school coach, Wordy Hicks from Benice, Louisiana, graduate of Grambling College, who lived and boarded with my grandmother because there's no other place that black teachers could state except with parents in the community. Mr. Hicks came to my mother's house and literally drove me to Utica Junior College. And as they say in show business, the rest is history. I found my way into the medical examiner's office, and I put system in quotations. I'm going to show you initially that it's not even a medical examiner's office, it's not a medical examiner's system, and that it is not, in fact, a system at all. And before I launch into my diatribe about the coroners, I want to say that the medical examiners, we don't have clean hands totally either. There are 465 offices where medical examiners perform autopsies on your and our loved ones. Of that 465 offices, our accreditation agency, the National Association of Medical Examiners, said that there were only 40, I believe the number is 40. We had 40 out of 465 offices that were accredited. And you have to raise the question, why? And they can give you 5 excuses without breathing, okay? So any one would do, but I think that's shameful. Next slide, please. The next real challenge that we don't seem to be able to do anything with and haven't done anything with over the years is the coroner. Next. This was a part of a headline that came out of a newspaper in Kansas City, Missouri, and I just happened to run across it. And this was actually when I changed the lecture. I was going to walk you through my book, From Mississippi to the Morgue, and tell you about the challenges and the potholes that I fell into and how I got up. But I thought it was much more important that we lay a real basic foundation. And I want you to know what forensic sciences is, what forensic pathology is, who the coroners are. This article says that there was troubling mistakes in the death investigation area, prompting a family was calling for changes in the Missouri coroner's office. That 37-year-old went to bed and didn't wake up, and the coroner authorized him to be buried. He did not. If there's any case that ever begged for an autopsy, it's a 37-year-old male. And we say in the forensic sciences, in forensic pathology, this is drug overdose until proved otherwise. So you've got to put him on the table. The family is still fighting 8 years later, okay, trying to get the laws changed. And why would they want to get the laws changed? Next slide. Here's what I took from, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The coroner has the responsibility of determining the cause of death, okay? And this article, this parent said, this is a lot of power for an elected official who needs almost no training at all. And in Missouri next, this is what you need. One of the parents said anybody could become a coroner in Missouri. And when I saw the criteria, you have no choice except to agree. If you fulfill these 3 criteria, the 4, if you fulfill these 3 or 4 criteria, and you have to run an elected, remember, these are elected officials. Coroners are elected, medical examiners are appointed. My boss is the state, when I worked for GBI, my boss was the director of GBI, and he answered directly to the state's attorney general. When a coroner gets elected in a particular corner, it is his call and his call alone. He bears his mistakes, or someone else bears them for him. When he said that 37-year-old did not deserve, well, I don't know whether he said deserve, but when he didn't order an autopsy on that 37-year-old, there was no recourse. There was no recourse. That's a lot of, Here's what Dr. Randall Hanslick, a former colleague, a friend, he died a few years ago. Next slide, please. He was well-written, well-spoken, an excellent teacher, and this is what he said about Georgia. And he said, this is what you need at the present time. He also said parenthetically that it also was true for other states as well. If you're a registered voter, 25 years of age, no felony conviction, high school diploma or equivalent, and you swear that you're telling the truth, then you can go out. And if the people in that county will elect you, then you can become the coroner. And on that and that alone, 1 week of training, that and that alone, these are the first people who go to the death scene to determine whether your and my loved one deserve further attention, for example, an autopsy. Coroners can't do autopsies. Coroners, we the pathologists work for the coroner. But we cannot do the autopsy on the decedent unless he or she sends them in from their respective county into the medical examiner's office to be evaluated. There's 159 counties in the state of Georgia. GBI covers 153 of them. There's 153 coroners. There's 153 deputy coroners, and there's 6 offices that run their own medical examiner system. Next slide, please. The coroners are politically connected, and we simply don't have enough trained forensic pathologists / medical examiners to replace them. We've been trying to replace these guys and ladies ever since 1928, okay? And nothing happened. We tried in 28, 32, 54, 1968, 1985, 2003, and the National Academy of Science came after it in stating that they need to be replaced in 2009. Nothing has happened in the 10 or 15 years that has passed since that, and I don't think that, I feel that in my lifetime, there will be no changes. Next slide, please. And if that's not bad enough, okay, that 75 to 80% of the populace don't know the difference between, if you just say a coroner and a medical examiner, then you have to deal with the fact that they are appointed, like we are, the doctors are, in certain states, Hawaii, Kansas, and North Dakota. They are physicians, but not medical examiners in Kansas City and North Dakota. They're prosecutors in Nebraska. They're sheriffs in some parts of California, and they're justices of the peace in my home state of Texas. So you need a scorecard. You actually flat out need a scorecard just to tell who the players are, not to mention the fact that the discrepancies that you'll run into after you identify them. Next slide, please. This is what, in September of 2021, the last year which I can find data, there was 3,143 counties or county equivalents within these United States. So that means that there's 3,143 coroners, there's 3,143 deputy coroners, and in the state of New York, there's 2 per county, so there's a little bit more than what you see there. And look how smooth and nice this map looks. There's a county map of the United States. But compare that to this one next, and this is what it looks like. Each one of those different colors, or the lack of color, represent a different system, okay? Some is a system where there's a state medical examiner, and all of the coroners work for him, and there's 104, the county, we were talking about Missouri. There's 114 counties in Missouri. Most of those have a coroner. The gray areas, some of the gray areas represent where they have just medical examiners. Some of the colors represent where they have just coroners. Some of the areas represent a mixture where they have coroners and medical examiners. And Dr. Hanslick, again, in his writing, he says that of these 3,143 counties, okay, there's approximately 2,342 separate death investigation systems. The death investigation systems are so different from one county to the next that we should be able to compare the data. So how many homicides were there across the nation? How many child abuse cases do we have? But the systems are so different and ran so differently that we cannot compare the data from one county to the next. Next slide, please. The American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigation is the professional organization that certifies individuals you got to be qualified to come to the death investigation course, sit for the examination, and become a board certified medical legal death investigator. Okay? In their data, again, the latest I could find was September 2001, they said of all of the people that we're talking about, they have death investigators in the Department of Public Safety, in the police offices, every precinct throughout the United States. So I don't know totally how many death investigators we're talking about. But let's just say for the record that we're talking about the 6,000 plus, okay, from the coroners that we know exist because we saw the number of counties, and each county had one medical examiner and at least one deputy medical examiner. So that was 6,000 plus. Of that group, 1,700, okay, were certified by the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigation. I don't know. Is it that we don't care? I don't know what the answer is. Okay? If you look, and I don't mean to be selfish, if you look at my credentials, okay, I'm board certified in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, forensic pathology, blood bank, and transfusion medicine. Everything I studied, and I would strongly urge. I don't know where you are in your career. I don't know where you're going to go. I don't know where you're going to end up. But if there is an opportunity, if the opportunity presents itself, if it doesn't, find it to certify yourself in the specialty. It speaks volumes about you. You volunteer to go. You can see from the lack of certification, nobody is making these people go. So the 1,700 who went wanted to be head and shoulders above the rest of the group. So they went and paid the price to become board certified. Next slide, please. Again, data is hard to come by, and I guess if I was dragging my feet in these areas, I wouldn't want to publish the data either. But I could only find data that from 2016. As of December the 5th, 2016, Tennessee was the only state in the nation, you believe that? The only state in the nation that requires its medical legal death investigators to be certified. They not only demand that they certify, they defray the cost of the course and the cost to sit for the examination. Some of the states, Dr. Randa Handlick again, less than 1/3 of the states with coroners require any form of training after they've been elected. Next, please. On the other hand, remember the slide where I was telling you how many years we've tried to replace the coroners? In September 2021 again, there were only 500 to 550 board certified practicing forensic pathologists / medical examiners, people who actually do the autopsies in the entire nation. Okay? I got a call from a former officer. I used to worship in Jonesboro when I was working at GBI. And I got a call from a former police officer, and a young mother had a 17-year-old son got shot and killed on a basketball court in Long Beach, California. She was in Atlanta, Georgia. She wanted to eulogize him, and she couldn't figure out why she couldn't not get through to anyone at the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office. So I got the correct number, put her through. They informed her that they had 150 cases waiting to be autopsied. That was the bad news. The good news was that the homicides came to the top of the list, but there was still a queue. You still had to get in line up, to be autopsied. So to say that there's a need for board-certified practice in forensic pathologists / medical examiners is an understatement, but I think it highlights the fact that at the current pace, it would be impossible to replace 6,000 coroners, or 3,000 coroners, with 500 or 550 medical examiners. Next slide, please. And they're certified by the American Board of Pathology. Not an easy exam. Dr. Joy Carter is my hero. Dr. Joy Carter was the first black lady that was ever board certified, first black lady to ever be the chief medical examiner of a major office in the United States. And I could go on and on about her, but it would take up my time. I showed this slide to say that black board certified forensic pathologists in the United States, that's about 35 or 45, and I say of us, I stopped practicing in 2014. And and the downside of that is all you have to do is look and say, well, where was the Breonna Taylors? Where was the George Floyds? Where were the Trayvon Martins of the world? Where were they killed? They were killed in our communities. But I would venture a bet or guess that there was probably not a black medical examiner present in either of those, in any of those cases. Next, please. Here's my personal track through forensic pathology. It varies a little bit with the individual. Some people don't take the year of internship. But my track through the rigors of becoming a forensic pathologist / medical examiner, I had 4 years of college. This is no brags, just facts. I had 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 1 year of internship, 4 years of general pathology, and 1 year of forensic pathology training. And I left out, because we're talking forensic pathology, I had another year of fellowship training in blood bank and transfusion medicine, and I was also board certified in that particular area. So it's a long, it's an arduous, it's a hard, it's a tough course. Some would say that we're less well paid. I worked as a hospital pathologist. I was much better paid as a hospital pathologist than as a medical examiner. But I believe that being a medical examiner is a labor of love. And I'm not sure that throwing some cash at it is going to come anywhere close to solving the problem that we have. We're nowhere close to solving this problem. And I don't know whether we've gone the ostrich route or what, but the only time you ever hear anything about the system is when some family gets upset and grieving enough and want to share their grief and go to the local sheriff or go to the news media. Otherwise, we sweep it under the rug and we keep going. Another reason is that about 50% of the nation find themselves under medical examiners, and the other 50% are under the, quote, care of the coroner. The medical examiners tend to work in the urban areas, and the coroners tend to be more in the rural areas and in the country. And I don't know whether that plays a part in the fact that we don't hear more about them or not. Next, please. I'm gonna segue now into the crime scene investigation, but I'm gonna look specifically at the medical examiner investigator, sometimes called a medical death investigator technician, that works directly out of the medical examiner's office. And believe me, you will not get in there or you will not stay if you don't submit yourself for that certification examination that I told you about. But once they get there, they take about 1.3 million telephone calls a year. Of that 1.3 million, we bring 50% of those, we bring half of those, more than 500,000, into the medical examiner's office around the nation for autopsies. With the advent of COVID, the opioid crisis, the offices have been, the medical examiner's office have been so swamped with dead bodies that we're bringing in refrigerated trucks to sit around the morgue to keep them cool and try to retard deterioration until we can get around to doing their autopsies. Next, please. I want to tell you a little bit about the medical legal death investigator, also known as a technician. They are professionals. Now, we don't have, well, last time I was at GBI, I tell you I left in 2014. Last time I was at GBI, we didn't have a specific position description for a medical legal investigator. We expected you to come in at least to have a bachelor's degree. The other thing is that there's a lot of people that can't handle standing around dead bodies every day, 8 hours a day, every day. So you have to be able to, you have to be wired to stay in the morgue. But if you come and you have the appropriate background and you have a good work ethic, we'll teach you what we need you to know. Next, please. Before these young people can get around to doing their job and getting the body to the medical examiner so that he can do his job, the family wants to know, why is my loved one, what's the interest of the medical examiner's office in my loved one office? Why is my loved one, why is my husband, my father, my son at the medical examiner's office? Well, they're at the medical examiner's office because we have a medical examiner's law. And the medical examiner's law dictates that, you can see it for yourself, that those cases listed suspicious, okay, which means that coroner in Missouri was obligated to have brought that family's loved one, 37-year-old son, into the office for further examination and autopsy, okay? But if your loved one falls into one of those categories, the law dictates that an autopsy be performed, and there's nothing, there's nothing that the family or anyone else can do that would alter that. Next, please. When the medical legal death investigators are taking those calls, and I told you that about 1.3 to 1.5 million of them each year. If the medical legal death investigator takes the call that corresponds to this scene, then that medical legal death investigator, after she gets the paperwork together, gets up and gathers herself a bag that's already been packed, okay? And we got a driver standing by. You may have seen the medical examiner's van. He's on TV or at a crime scene if you've seen one. And he or she then follows that call to this scene. When they get to that scene, the body, they protect the body. The body is under the purview of the medical legal death investigator, and she is guarded at the behest on behalf of the medical examiner, okay? And these guys are from the crime scene investigation. If anybody does anything, that's not proper, these same people are going to show up at the autopsy table the next morning to witness the autopsy, and believe me, they will be taken to task. And they have been. And those who have learned their lesson, and they don't repeat the same mistakes over again. Next, please. We expect a lot of our medical legal death investigators. This is as close as I can come to making you CSI, okay? We expect a lot from you, but we train you, okay? You've been properly trained. We will not send you to a scene, okay, if we didn't feel that you was ready to go there. When you answer that telephone call, and it is a homicide or suicide or suspicious death, we expect you to get there and pronounce the death of the decedent. We expect you to participate in the scene, guard the body, and participate in the scene with CSI. We've also had you to spend time with the medical, with the forensic photographer, so that your skills are sharp, because you got the camera when you're at the death scene. The forensic photographer takes the examination in the autopsy suite, but at the scene, we expect the medical legal death investigator to take those photographs, and we expect good photographs, by the way, okay? We expect you to secure the personal property of the decedent next. It's not finished yet. Next slide, please. We expect for you to arrange a proper transportation, but we've already sent you over, with a driver in the appropriate van. Arrange for preserve the evidence that's been collected at the scene, and by preserving it, we mean we want you to not only collect it appropriately, but we want you to initiate that very important chain of custody, okay? Otherwise, the evidence will get thrown out of court, okay? Notify, it's your responsibility to notify the next of kin, and if there is medical records or dental records that you feel that would be involved, if it's a burned body, we want the dental records. If it's an aged patient who has medical history, we expect you to start the paperwork so that we get the medical records promptly. Now, here's what we did before I left GBI, and I don't know whether they still do it or not. We took these same young people and we said, we have come up with a way that we're going to give you the biggest raise that you've ever had. Unheard of. Here's what we're going to do, and you can opt in or opt out. We train the medical legal death investigators to become autopsy assistants. And guess what? When we showed them what the raise was going to be, everybody opted in. And we trained them. So on days when they were not feeling telephone calls and going to scene, they were in the autopsy suite assisting the medical examiner in doing autopsy. It was not forced. You didn't have to do it. We were hoping to make it a better job for them, more exciting, and most of all, we gave them better pay. Next, please. Now, you must learn, it is important that you represent the medical examiner and represent him well. He or she, don't mean to be sexist. Represent the office well. So when you usually when the medical examiner's investigator arrive, crime scene unit is already there, okay? They may or may not have brought their own photographer with them. They are collecting evidence, they're documenting the scene. They got people drawing, sketching. They might have blood spatter. If it's a gunshot wound, they might have a blood spatter technician with them. And this is one of those, again, you would not see a position description for a blood spatter. But if you're good with geometry, you make yourself known and make yourself available, you can become the go-to person. It's job security. You can become the go-to person, okay, in going to those scenes where blood spatter. You can tell, look at that pattern, and you can tell the investigators where the perpetrator was or where was standing. You give a lot of information based on where the blood, how the blood spattered. Next slide. It's very important to understand that this is a trifecta, okay? The autopsy, you can do the best autopsy. I can perform the academic autopsy, okay? Do the best autopsy known to man. If the crime scene lab fails in their efforts, don't test it or test it wrong, okay? I failed a lot of courses in math, okay? But if you look at this and say, you get 33 1/3% from the autopsy, the same amount from the crime scene, and the same amount from CSI, okay? You wouldn't have to be a mathematician to know that if one of those fail or don't come up to par, you fail. 70% is passing, okay? So we need full participation. And we're going to do our best in the autopsy. We're going to, we can't control CSI. That was the second group, not the medical legal death investigator. The crime scene unit that came from the police department, they're the one that's going to forward us a separate scene report. But we are in charge of the crime lab, so the pathologist then has the responsibility to make sure that we have the appropriate people in place, the appropriate equipment, the appropriate testing, the appropriate accreditation, and that they know and we get the appropriate specimens to them to do the testing so that we can put the cases together. Next, please. And you get to meet, other things, you get to meet the most interesting people. This brother here has some serious history. This is the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass, Kenneth Morris, the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass, the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington. I met him at Texas Southern University after my wife had he had made a presentation. Next, please. This is my wife and I. We had just presented in Cairo, Egypt that morning, and the group took us to the pyramids. We had a tour on the Nile River the night before. We went to the pyramids during the day, and before the sun set that afternoon, I was dipping my toes in the Red Sea. It's an exciting area. And next slide, please. Before I leave, I want to tell you, those of you who are in this county, I don't know whether you're from this county, in this county, visiting, what your home state is, but those of you who are in this county, Micah Fowler is the prototype, prototypical of what a coroner should be. And those of you, so we'll give a shout out and kudos to Micah. Micah was one of the best autopsy assistants that I've ever worked with, okay? He retired from GBI as an autopsy assistant. I'm not suggesting that every coroner needs to come spend 20 years in the autopsy suite, okay? He's degreed, okay? He's intelligent, okay? So those of you who are here and in this county, you're very, very fortunate, very fortunate. Last slide. This is the book where I chronicled the journal that I was initially going to walk you through. It just tells of my journey from small town Mississippi. Am I okay time-wise? How we doing? Of my small journey from Mississippi. My parents were not dropouts. My parents were what I call force outs. They would not allow them to go to school beyond the 8th grade. After Coach Hicks took me to Utica Junior College, the middle 5 of my mother's 7 children all took a bachelor's degree from Alcorn State University. They called it Alcorn A&M College at the time, okay? So now because Coach Hicks took an interest in me, okay, that's why I'm standing in front of you today. Because Coach Hicks took an interest in me, the Posey family have children who have children who have children that's going to college. And believe it or not, my mother went, after the baby boy, the seventh child left home, she went to Alcorn Extension College in Natchez, Mississippi, got an associate degree, and taught and worked in Head Start for 20 years. My dad finished high school after going to the Marine. I would like for you, I started a small nonprofit called the Future Forensic Scientists, and we give a tip of the hat to the future forensic scientists. They are responsible and defraying the cost of my being in front of you today so that I could be a blessing to this wonderful university and not a burden. I'd like to hear from you. I want to visit other of the historical black, there's 9 other historical black colleges in Georgia. I'd like to visit all of them. Those of you who have additional questions or discussions, or if a small group of you want to jump on a Zoom with me occasionally to talk about issues, talk about forensic science, forensic job hunting, or whatever, I want you to feel free to get in contact with me, and and we can carry on this discussion. And if you photograph the QR code, it just simply repeats my contact information. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Introduce yourself, darling.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Dion Posey. I am Doug Posey's daughter. I'm a graduate of Spelman and Emory University School of Public Health. I went to my dad's alma mater, Wayne State University. After much fooling around trying to figure out how to do in life, I did internal medicine and pediatric residency and thought, let's go change the world. And then I decided to take care of kidney patients, or did a fellowship in nephrology. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I came back here with my husband. I have 2 small kids, and I work with Kaiser. I work with Emory. I do hospitalists. I've been a private practice nephrologist. I've done hospital nephrology. I've worked for United Healthcare and Humana, and I'm really, really excited to be here. Just being in a classroom and getting to hear my dad talk was a wonderful experience. I'm excited to see you all. And I was like, oh, I think I would love teaching. It's a very exciting time. What I would say is this is what we call the pluripotent state. So when we talk about a cell in a body, pluripotent means that cell has the potential to turn into any type of cell, a muscle cell, a nerve cell, anything. And this is that point for you guys. There's so many different things that you can do. And the thing I love about this stage is you believe that you can. It's like, why not? Why can't I? So I'm very excited by the energy in the room. So thank you.
Question.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Dr. Posey. So you were talking about the current requirements for coroners in Georgia. Was that the current requirements on your slide, or was that the past requirements? Like legal requirements to be a coroner in Georgia? That's like one of your early slides.
I don't know, to be truthfully honest, I don't know whether they've been updated.
Okay.
Okay, since Dr. Hansley did his study.
Okay. But so when did that date to, do you think?
I think Dr. Hansley would have done his study. I think he published that in 20 or 21.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's probably still
and it's not, and it's not easy. You call and people really don't want to tell you.
The little,
and I think if I was there, I wouldn't want to tell it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned that the coroner had first say in like cause of death, right? And if they're wrong or they're incorrect on their just died.
I'm going to repeat your question and make sure you keep me honest. What recourse does a family have after cause of death if there's an error or disagreement about the cause of death? What recourse does the family have, and how do they figure out what to do in a coroner's, where the coroner is in charge of that decedent?
Yes.
Okay. None. I would refer you, Google troubling death investigation or something to that effect in Missouri, and read that parent's case. Okay? Those parents were denied an autopsy report for 1 year. When the report came out, the cause of death was listed as drug overdose, and there had been no toxicology performed. Nothing that would document that any drugs were on board. And if I read the article correctly, they are still trying to push the envelope to get the coroner laws changed in the state of Missouri. But as far as their son goes, nothing has been changed. And this is one of the things that I find most upsetting about the current system that we find ourselves in. They have the power. If the coroner, and they also have budgets, okay? And it is a known fact that the entire system is underfunded, okay? So when the coroner looks at your loved one, he might have to decide, if let's say he looks at two people, okay? And maybe he decides he only wants to spend money or only has money left to spend on one, okay? And then he and he alone makes that call. No oversight. Scary.
So the question is, so she works in the coroner's office, and if a body is sent for evaluation or, to ask for an autopsy to GBI and they decline to do an autopsy, is the family able to do independent autopsies?
Yeah, there are groups of, there are individual pathologists who will do that autopsy for you. Most families, once they find out that the individual willing to do the autopsy wants $2,500 to $3,000, they usually decide that maybe they'll accept the declination from a GBI. But they do have that right. And some of them who feel strong enough about it push on through, pay the fee, and get the autopsy done. You can also do what we call second look autopsies. That is, GBI can do the autopsy, okay? You're not satisfied with the results. You can have someone do what we call a second look autopsy for you. It is really kind of hit and miss, that once the body, we do a pretty good job of destroying the human body when we do an autopsy on it, okay? That's why we kind of sew it up roughly and cover it up with a clean white sheet. But it's, so to go back and try to take a second look at an autopsy that's already been performed, I've tried a few, but I was so dissatisfied, with my ability to try to come up with a result that I refuse to do them any longer.
Any other question? Thank you, Dr.
You've been a great audience. I appreciate you. Thank you, and best of luck. If any of you want to raise some questions, the discussion that you didn't want to raise here, contact me or send me a note to info@futureforensicSciences.org.
On behalf of Forensic Science Club and Forensic Science Program, every student in this classroom right now will get a copy of that book. Okay, just try and thank Forensic Science Club President, Ms. Kayla Congress. She's smiling. She bought it for every one of you. She's going to give everybody a copy of that book. So don't come to me, go to her. She will get you a copy. She's going to go by the list of those that are present. So please make sure you sign your name so you can get a copy of that book. On behalf of ASU, on behalf of Forensic Science, my colleagues, my lovely students, my colleague in biology, my special backbone in forensic science, Dr. Conker, we want to say a very big thank you for coming around. As you go back, we want to tell you to tell your wife, thank you for releasing you to Georgia.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Remind me, I taught pathology at Howard University for a couple of years, taught pathology at Meharry Medical College for a couple of years. I don't miss the rigors of trying to get promoted, but I miss the students. I miss them immensely.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Posey, for driving him down here. We so much appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody.